Thank you, Chair. Morning. It's a bit of a deja vu, isn't it?
Good morning, Senator.
You probably thought you'd seen the back of me, and I certainly thought I had seen the back of you, but here we are.
Congratulations on your appointment as Acting Shadow Minister.
Thank you,
Home Affairs.
Minister. Very kind. I'm grateful.
Acting Interim Temporary.
Indeed, hopefully.
Interim Acting Temporary.
We will ask the substantive questions in the substantive outcomes, but just at the outset, I want to seek your assurance that all reasonable questions about ISIS brides can be answered here in the committee today.
Senator, I'll answer everything I'm in a position to do so.
Thank you, because Senator Wong yesterday in PMC, as you may or may not have seen, was very insistent that this is the place for those questions and this is the place where we'll get those answers. So I'm grateful for that. Just want to touch on some cross-portfolio issues, though, before we get to that. And just to make sure that after the election, nobody accidentally confused the blue book with the red book?
No, Senator.
No? Because it seems to me that in relation to the machinery of government changes that you just spoke about, the government implemented the opposition's election commitments, not their own. So could you just explain the government's rationale for these machinery of government changes?
Yeah, probably best if I take that one.
Please.
Senator Patterson. So, I mean, the reality is that the national security world is constantly evolving, and so the government, will always make decisions and consider the best structures of government for a particular moment in time. Of course, the overriding objective, particularly when it comes to this portfolio, the overriding objective of this government is to keep Australians safe and therefore to have the right departmental machinery and architecture to achieve that goal. As I say, the security environment that we confront is constantly changing, and that always requires consideration to what is the best kind of structures within government to manage these issues. Security issues are much more cross-cutting across portfolios than they have ever been before, and all of those things put together meant that the government made a decision to make some administrative changes which resulted in the AFP, ASIO, AUSTRAC and the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission transferring under the Department of Home Affairs portfolio alongside some policy responsibilities from the Attorney General's Department. What that ultimately means is that we have all operational agencies in the same portfolio with oversight powers under the Attorney General. And our view is that for this moment in time, that is the best structure to adopt.
Sure, but you won the election, and not just by a little bit, and it's unusual for a government re-elected to implement the opposition's election commitments, not your own, particularly because this machinery of government change reverses the two previous machinery of government changes that you made in the last term, and the Home Affairs portfolio now almost exactly resembles what it was when you came to government before you started dismantling it. So why has the government changed its mind and reversed the changes it made in its first term?
Well, I mean, you might like to paint this in a particular way, Senator Patterson, but the government's considerations, it's not the first time that a re-elected government has made machinery of government changes. That's a very common thing to occur, and in fact it often occurs during a parliamentary term as well, when there's a ministerial reshuffle or for other reasons. We certainly haven't been motivated in our decision making by political objectives. What we've been motivated by is considering the current security environment that Australia faces and setting up government in a way that reflects and best deals with that security environment. And so our view, as I say, is that right now this is the best structure to have. I'll make the point, that under the former coalition government we saw changes from time to time in terms of the national security infrastructure. At times some of the security agencies sat within the Attorney General's portfolio. At times they were moved into the Home Affairs portfolio. So it's not unusual for governments to make these sorts of decisions at different points in time.
Well, we moved them all in 2017 and left them that way for 5 years. You took them out when you won the election. You first took out the AFP and then you took out ASIO. which we were highly critical of and which you defended in this forum, and then you reversed it. So what has changed to cause you to change your opinion about, in particular, the AFP and ASIO being in this portfolio?
Well, as I say, governments make decisions at points in time about what the right departmental structures are that meet the moment. And we made decisions after we were elected in 2022 that at that point in time there was a case to separate some of those agencies. We've made a decision after this election that at this point in time it meets the moment best to have these agencies sit in the Home Affairs portfolio with oversight activities undertaken through Attorney General Department, and that's the way we've structured things.
The Prime Minister was asked about this at his press conference shortly after the election, and he alluded to communication issues, particularly relating to the Dural caravan incident. Is that an acknowledgement from the Prime Minister that he should have been briefed by the AFP on that incident, as the New South Wales Premier was?
No, as I say, it's an acknowledgement that right now, with the cross-cutting various security challenges that Australia faces, both domestically and internationally, that we think the current and revised structure is the best way of dealing with that.
So what were the communication issues the Prime Minister was referring to?
I'm not here representing the Prime Minister, so I couldn't say.
No, but you're representing the portfolio that your government has mogged to overcome those communication issues. So do you not know? Well,
again, you're asking me about statements the Prime Minister has made, and I'm not here representing the Prime Minister.
Right, so I take it from that you don't know.
I've never asked the Prime Minister about that, no.
Right, can you take it on notice?
Sure.
Thank you. I'd just be curious, it's quite a significant thing to say about your national security architecture, that communication within the portfolio was deficient, and you can't tell me what those deficiencies were.
That's
Secretary,
a statement,
are you
by the sound of it.
aware of what the Prime Minister was referring to?
Senator, I've not had any conversation with the Prime Minister about that.
Has the government articulated to you the rationale for the MOG changes?
Senator, clearly Minister Burke and I have discussed the opportunity presented by the machinery of government changes and the capacity for us to strengthen what I've described to you in the past as already very strong links between the department and the operational agencies, and to cite a couple of perhaps simple examples, Senator, having all of us reporting to one minister allows us to do things like prepare a coordinated brief for Cabinet Committee meetings, to have very clearly established protocols for who briefs the minister on what sorts of incidents in what time frame. So those sorts of practical things we've been able to implement very quickly. I think also, Senator, you will have heard a number of people, including the Director General of ASIO, talk about the way threats are no longer distinct, no longer fit in sort of separate stovepipes, and the capacity to have all of us working together in one portfolio, I think, positions us better to respond to that emerging security landscape.
Well, as you know, I agree with you, and have argued that for the best part of 3 years, including in this forum. And when I've made those arguments, I've received assurances from that side of the table that I need not be concerned, that there are no impediments to cooperations of agencies, even though they reported to different ministers and were in different portfolios. But you have just acknowledged that these changes have strengthened the ability for those agencies to cooperate and for you to coordinate them. So isn't that an acknowledgement that it wasn't as strong under the previous MOG arrangements?
So, Senator, I stand by the evidence that I've given you previously. The relationships were strong and our cooperation was very strong. What I've described is the additional opportunity that we have now we are in the one portfolio working to the one minister.
You said before you had discussions with the minister about the opportunity to strengthen the portfolio. Is it the case that you're able to strengthen the portfolio because of a change in the Attorney-General's portfolio, because Mr Dreyfus is no longer the Attorney-General? He is a known critic of the Home Affairs construct and previously gained the AFP and ASIO in his portfolio. Now that he is gone, has it been easier for the government to put those agencies back into Home Affairs?
Senator, that's very much a question for government, not for officials.
Perhaps the minister can assist us.
No.
Have you ever been party to any conversations where Mr Dreyfus has argued against these sorts of arrangements?
Not that I can recall.
How about any where he's argued for the AFP or ASIO to be brought into the portfolio?
Not that I can recall.
Not that you can call. Hasn't come up in cabinet. Hasn't come up in your caucus. In any other forum.
Well, of course, even if it had been discussed in cabinet, I wouldn't be talking about that here. But as I say, I don't recall being a part of any discussion of that kind.
I mean, Mr Dreyfus has publicly made these arguments for years that it's inappropriate to have the AFP under Home Affairs and ASIO under Home Affairs. In public forums, you're not aware of those?
I think I've seen some of that public reporting, but you were asking me about whether I've been part of any discussions, and the answer is no. Not that I can recall.
Right, okay. So it wasn't easier for the Prime Minister to do this now that Mr Dreyfus could no longer object to it? I mean, he was the Cabinet Secretary, so he would have had quite a lot of say and oversight over MOG changes.
No, I mean, as I said earlier, this is not about, these changes are not about achieving a political objective, they're not about ministerial changes, they're about delivering what the government considers to be the best policy architecture to deal with the national security challenges that we face right now.
Just not what you considered to be the best architecture only 6 months ago?
Well, as I say, I mean, during the Morrison government, there were times when some of these agencies sat in Attorney General, some of these sat in Home Affairs. We all remember what George Brandis had to say about that and continues to say when he was the Attorney General. But what we're focused on is what Australia needs right now, and this is what we think Australia needs right now.
I'm sure it was unintentional, but what you said was just not true, was it?
What bit?
You just said that under the Morrison government at various times these agencies were under different portfolios. That's not true. Well,
my recollection is that, for example, ASIO at different times sat in Attorney General's department, and sometimes a portfolio, and sometimes it sat in Home Affairs.
Not under the Morrison government.
Oh, okay. You're right. Fortunately for Australia, Scott Morrison was only the Prime Minister for a brief period in that Turnbull-Abbott-Morrison government, but under the Turnbull-Abbott-Morrison government, those agencies moved around. I've blocked out some of the previous years from my memory.
The Home Affairs construct was created under Malcolm Turnbull as Prime Minister in 2017, and it remained constant and stable for the rest of that time in government.
I'm pleased to hear you speaking up as a fan of Malcolm Turnbull. I didn't realise you were a fan of Malcolm Turnbull.
One of his many great achievements. Chair, I've got some other cross-portfolio matters, but I'm conscious if you may want to rotate the call.
I can do. I was going to let you go till 10:30.
Sure, I'm happy to continue.
I'll rotate the call after morning tea.